starting with Yasmin.
I definitely think that streetcar is needed. We definitely need more public transit in Northern Virginia. On the issue of transportation in general, what I believe is that we definitely need an increased investment in Metro, an expansion to Dulles, but also I support the expansion of the VRE. I definitely think that by getting more mass transit options, including VRE and Metro expansion of buses, it'll give people better alternatives to driving.
I support increased transportation options because our needs are so diverse. And actually in some of the information about streetcars, we find that it brings different populations into a mass transit option. So I think the more mass transit options we have to get people out of cars, the better we are. I recently had the opportunity to travel to Bonn, Germany, and everybody told me Bonn was a very boring city, but when I got there, it was so exciting to see this combination of bicycles and streetcars and buses and bus dedicated lanes and this variety, and very, very few cars on the road. I know Bonn is not Arlington, but the vision of what they did with that city was so powerful. So I think about what could be in Columbia Pike. I also don't question the decisions of those that we've elected to the county council and the decisions that they're making with input, so I appreciate the toughness of their job.
So I'm a big supporter of public transportation. I take the bus every day to work. If you drive down Lake Highway between 7:30 and 8:30, you're going to see me standing out there to take the 3A, the 15L, or the 3Y. So I take bus every day. What I would say is that I've tried to be respectful in this discussion about the streetcar and different options. I've never trashed the streetcar. I don't call it the trolley like many Republicans. I recognize that the streetcar has benefits. I have questions and concerns about how much it's going to cost. I think this has become a difficult issue for our community because there are, in essence, two rights that are in conflicting. Jay, Mary, and Walter on the board, they're right. We need to be respectful of the process that's taken place over a number of years. But at the same time, we all know that when a project, you're having to pay for a project, you start to pay attention to how much it's going to cost. So it's not a huge surprise to me that this has gotten a lot more attention here recently. Those two rights are conflicting, and we're trying to sort it out.
So, I believe transit solutions along Columbia Pike are absolutely necessary. I believe that improved transit can achieve many different goals, from reducing congestion to improving economic development to preserving affordable housing, protecting and creating new open space, and also funding our school system if we can get the tax base built up. The role I see of a delegate is to advocate for Arlington's interests in Richmond. And those interests are defined by, certainly in a case like a streetcar, those interests are defined by the county board. Should the dynamic on the county board change, then I think as a delegate, my role might have to evolve as well. But right now, I support the streetcar. That's the policy of the county board.
I'm a regular user of transit, and I do believe that what Arlington County has become has been in part because of public transportation. Certainly the Orange Line coming all the way down Wilson Boulevard has definitely grown our county in leaps and bounds. I think that definitely the conversation has skewed a lot. Columbia Pike is a place that is heavily congested, especially in the morning. I can't tell you how many news feeds I get complaining about it all the time on my Facebook about it. But I think definitely we should be looking at what the county board specifically wants to do, and as a delegate, my role would be to advocate for the necessary funding to come back to have a dedicated lane that would cut through Columbia Pike, where we can have something that moves quickly and actually helps to grow the corridor while not affecting traffic at the same time, sort of like the Crystal City Transit way. that we're getting funding and support for. So thank you.
So to me, it's interesting, as I've talked to voters over the last week, I've talked to a lot of the people in the room, I've talked to other folks. Haven't talked to you. It's funny how this is almost becoming the Arlington litmus test, and now we've seen it in the lightning round. We want to have a 350 million question reduced to a yes or no question, and think that should be sufficient public discourse because it was part of a plan. As you saw in my Blue Virginia answers, as I've talked to anybody who's talked to me, I'm all for 21st century transportation solutions. The United States is behind the curve in terms of implementing 21st century transportation solutions throughout the country, including in Northern Virginia, including in Arlington, including on Columbia Pike. That means there has to be change. That doesn't mean the plan as written, as yet totally unfunded, has to be approved by all of us, or any of us, with a yes/no answer.
There are two sides to this, of course, and by that I mean two parts of the question. The first is having a streetcar a good idea? I believe the answer to that is yes. It could be actually very exciting in terms of the transit-oriented development it could create in the Columbia Pike area, Crystal City, even in Skyline and Bailey's. Is something I am in favor of and would help to pursue. The funding of it, that's the hard part. That's the hard part. I've suggested that federal funds should be used. We at least ought to investigate awfully hard, try to get some federal funding for this. There may well be other sources of funds, TIF financing, other state and local sources. But the issue is it ought not to be paid for from local operating budgets. It ought not to affect local pocketbooks. And we just need to be creative about how to fund it. I'm committed to helping, to the extent that a state delegate can help with these issues, find creative ways to fund the streetcar.